Hello, now we're going to talk about the system build. So, how do we build the system? The, what we are addressing here is that building the system, so from the source code, generate an executable to deploy the system or even just to test the system is can be a quite complex process where you need to apply different tools, compilers, execute tests, and so on. And the point is that this is an activity that you keep repeating. So the best way to deal with it is basically to program this activity, write code, write scripts that basically do it for you. And so there are a couple of technologies that you can use to do it. The one we have been using was Maven. So basically what is the problem is that you want to build and to a complex system, and actually there are different types of build. Okay, so this is repetitive with variations because sometimes it's just you want to run the tests, or you just want to run a specific test, or you want to run all the tests, or you want to run the tests in your machine, or you want to run the tests in a test machine. So there are a lot of variations, but basically this is basically the same process. So the idea is that you want to have some tool that helps you basically to write these builds, so to write the build scripts. So you need to use a language to write it. Okay. Integrate with the version control systems. Probably you want to automatically, if everything is okay, to do a pull request. So maybe you want to integrate these with that. So you want to have minimal recompilation that probably are realized already in other projects, in the sense that you only recompile what is necessary. So just check what are the differences between your current code and the last time you just ran the build process. Then you want to create the executable, test automation, write reportings, okay, get reportings, and generate documentation. There are several features that you can use. So one of the things that changed in the last years is basically that you don't need to include the libraries, because that usually you have these problems with compatibility between libraries, and sometimes it's difficult to trust on someone that is going to use the system or to install the system, that you just forget to install a particular version of the library. So one of the things that these scripts do for you and these systems do for you is just they access public repositories where you can download automatically the libraries from, so there's no problem with that. Okay. So the only thing you need to do basically is just in your script you say what is the version that you are using, for instance in the particular library, and then for instance in the Maven repository you have all the versions and you can use even an older version of your library. Okay. So what is the Maven lifecycle? So how is this implemented from the Maven perspective, that what we are using? Basically, it defines three life cycles. One, which is the default life cycle, is basically that when it goes through several phases, and actually when you want to build your system, you define what is the target phase, and it runs through all the phases till the target phase. Okay, so this is the longer life cycle, probably the one that you're going to use more. And so it goes from validation of the script itself, whether your script is okay, till you compile. For instance, when you do mvn compile, you go till this phase, so you go through all these phases. You have phases where you generate code because you have code generation. So before you compile, you need to generate your code. Then you have phases where you run the tests. For instance, the test phase, that you go till this phase to test. Of course, you need to generate, compile the tests here, okay? And you have a phase where you do the package. And by doing the package, you create the executable in your target folder, okay, where the project is installed. But you can go further and do install, and you move these to your M2 directory that is in Maven home directory. Okay, that usually is your home directory by default. So if you look and you try to find a .m2 directory, you'll find where all the libraries are, and in particular the ones that you generate from the executables that you generate from your side. And then you have deploy, where you deploy the system. So you go through all these phases. In our project, basically, we've done this, but in production, we do everything. Okay, so to install it. Okay, actually, in production, will be explained in a different context. Okay. Then you have two other life cycles, much smaller. One that you do a lot, which is the clean life cycle. That basically, it's a way that you clean what you have done before, just to avoid that if you don't want to use these minimal compilation. So you clean everything, and Maven will compile everything for you again. Okay, we'll regenerate everything for you. Okay, so you have a pre-clean, clean, and post-clean. I will explain a little bit more while the phases work, but basically what you do is that you are going to associate tasks to do each one of the phases. So by default, actually, this is a completely clean sequence. But actually, when you program, you're going to integrate several plugins, and each plugin adds, so a plugin aggregates a set of goals, a set of tasks to do, and aggregates these goals and puts them, each goal, in one of the phases. And then when you execute, it just the Maven sees which plugins are being executed, and for each of the plugins for each phase says, well, what tasks I need to do according to the plugins that are part of the configuration of the script definition. Okay. So the last one is basically the life cycle, and the life cycle is just to generate documentation and sites. Okay. We have not been using that. So you can have several variations, okay? And so build to compile, build to run all tests. Then you have the Maven Goals, so actually where you define the tasks. And everything works in the context of Maven plugins. Okay, so actually we are using, for instance, one plugin in our project that is the Spring Boot plugin. That's why we can do a Maven Spring Boot run, and we are executing the run goal of the Spring Boot plugin. Okay, but we have been used others like Jacoco. Okay, so the plugins is a way to aggregate goals and place these goals in the phases. Okay, so associated to the phases. So a plugin defines a consistent set of goals, that basically. Okay, so I can show you in our code how do you actually define this. So you are using so you say that the parent is a Spring Boot, okay, and then you define two things. The one is these libraries, and you can even say what are the version of the library you are using, and this basically downloads these libraries from the internet into your M2 directory, where you can then get the information. And besides these dependencies that are all the libraries you are using in the project. Okay, then you have plugins. We are using the Maven plugin, the Spring Boot Maven plugin that if you look at it, you can find the definitions of these plugins on the internet. So for instance, you will find it here, Spring Boot Maven plugin documentation, and you have all the information about what are the goals of the plugin, in which phase with which phase are they associated, or you can even associate some of them. Look, basically I've been using this goal, okay, Spring Boot run, but you can execute other goals, okay, that are there, okay, and so plugin puts together goals so that you can easily configure it. So basically your script is just using plugins. In most of the cases, you don't need even to configure the plugins. In other cases, you need to adapt the plugin for your specific needs. Okay, and an example here is, for instance, and Jacoco. Okay, and this is the Jacoco plugin that measures the coverage of the tests, and you define, so you are associating, for instance, with the phase test. So this is the phase of to this phase is associating the report. So when you run tests, it writes the report, and the report is the task of Jacoco that writes all these information about what is the coverage. And for the execution, you basically have this goal prepare agent, and prepare agent is just to prepare to start observing, monitoring the code so that you can collect data for you can collect the data for you can collect the data for the just for the tests that are going to run. Okay, so actually in our project we have done a little bit more, in the sense that we have associated the plugins with specific profiles. And so profiles is a way that when you do Maven minus p test, so when I do something like mvn minus p test, I'm actually trying to achieve the phase test of the default life cycle, but in the context of the test plugin. So the test profile. So only the plugins that are inside this profile, okay, will be relevant, and of course the plugins that are generic. Okay, so but you can have plugins for the different profiles. Actually, for the different profiles, the only thing we have defined is for the other profiles is a value, an active value, so that we can know in other parts of the code which profile is running. Okay, is this active by default? And actually, you can use an annotation in your code. For instance, in our Java code, we have done this. Okay, maybe I can show it to you. We have done this to achieve, to find in which context we are running. Okay, I think it's there. Not here. Just a moment. So here it is. So I was talking about this. In this profile, we set this variable, this property, and then inside your code, we can actually declare a variable that will have a value equal to the value of the way you are, which profile you are using, and then actually in this case we are defining different types of access control here. Okay, depending on whether you running in development mode or not. Okay, so this could be a solution for some of the tests that you want to run. So if you want to run using the test profile and not having access control, at least this verification, you can relax some of it. Okay, and so you can build your system and run your tests in different contexts. In this case, we are only even inside the code. I think that's pretty much about this. So then you need to know what you do in each one of these phases. We have been using this, so now it's basic to understand it. I can show you a little bit more of here. So I've already shown you Jacoco. Okay, that's pretty much this. Okay, enjoy.